Nube is a badass exorcist that's pretty popular around Japan for his great cosmic abilities. This time, he was summoned by the principal of a well-known high school to help get rid of all the ghosts and paranormal activity going on around there. Things at the school got so bad that students were constantly getting injured from the accidents caused by evil spirits. Nube was assigned to be the homeroom teacher for a bunch of useless kids. Rumor has it that he is the only teacher in Japan that has psychic powers, and just by taking a look at him, it's obvious he's confident about handling this job. The principal took a deeper look into things and discovered that the town is emitting a spiritual magnetic field. However, this magnetic field is a special one that's different from the kind that's usually found in places like the forest. It's created when the balance maintained by the town's circulating energies break down. As a result of this recent paranormal activity, it drew in a lot of spiritual energy into the city and ended up creating this special magnetic field. That's the only possible explanation for all the ghost sightings that have been happening lately. Meanwhile, in Class 5, Makobano is busy lecturing Katsuya about how he shouldn't be using smartphones in class, but in response, Katsuya just pats her head, saying there's no teacher here to catch him. This topic reminded Katsuya of something funny that happened a while ago, so he calls out to his buddy Hiroshi to tell him, but just by looking at Hiroshi's body language, you can tell he just wants to be left alone. Apparently, he and Katsuya had a little fight in the past and haven't made up since then. Katsuya says he doesn't have any feelings of malice towards him anymore, and if anything, Hiroshi's the one that's being weird about it. Kyoto walks over to Hiroshi to try and cheer him up, but it's obvious Hiroshi still isn't having any of it. Katsuya can see that things are starting to get a little awkward between them, so he goes over to Kyoto and changes the topic, asking her whether she knows the kind of person their new homeroom teacher is going to be. Kyoto informs all her classmates that the new homeroom teacher is someone that she knew. Apparently, he used to live in her neighborhood. He continues to blab about how nice he is, but then at a certain point, she accidentally blurts out that he has a mysterious power unlike they've ever seen before. Her classmates hear that and immediately get curious as to what kind of power she was referring to. Her light-haired classmate is unexpectedly smarter than she looks. She pulls some reverse psychology on Kyoto and says that she's lying about the teacher having a mysterious power. Kyoto instantly takes the bait and reveals that the teacher's mysterious ability is exorcism. A few seconds later, her dumbass realizes she shouldn't have said that, so she covers her mouth in shock. Still, her classmates hear it and don't believe her. They all assume that she's lying about it. But just then, the entire hallway goes dark and a dark paranormal-looking being walks through it while the students just stare in awe. The door opens and it happens to be our protagonist Nube. He appears at the door, a literal crystal ball in his hand and tons of cosmic shit floating around him. He has so much aura, the students even start to get a little scared. But he then loses that aura in the next moment as the fake cosmic fires he set accidentally catch onto him. About 20 minutes later, class is now in session and our protagonist writes his name on the board, introducing himself as Mr. Mezu Nube, their new homeroom teacher. Miki raises her hand up to ask a question. She tells Nube that she heard rumors of him having a special power, so she bluntly asks him to show them all what his power is. He takes them over to the school notice board and starts to perform some form of really silly exorcism ritual. And after watching that embarrassing display, the students are fairly convinced that he doesn't have any real exorcism powers. Miss Ritsuko hears the loud noises he was making and comes into the hallway, asking what all the ruckus is about. Mr. Nubo walks up to her and confidently tells her that there are a lot of ghosts haunting her, after which he pulls out his exorcism badge and suggests performing an exorcism on her. However, Miss Ritsuko is terrified by all this paranormal stuff, so she first of all slaps him in the face and then runs away as soon as she realizes it. The students witness this and all start to laugh. They all figured he was lying about having exorcism powers, but they find it kind of funny that he's willing to take it this far. Nube dropped his spell book after he got slapped. Hoshiro picks it up and immediately, as his hands come into contact with it, he starts to get some vivid flashbacks. Then a monster appears in his mind space. In the next moment, he gets aggravated for literally no reason and starts to throw a tantrum. Kyoto tries to calm him down, but Nube just walks towards Hoshiro, saying he's going to take care of it. Nube harmlessly walks up to Hoshiro, then in the next moment, Hoshiro throws a sharp right hook at him. Nube is easily able to block, however, he can now really see that Hoshiro's behavior has a much deeper cause. Kyoto walks him out to the cafeteria while the other students just stand there, stunned that he just attempted to hit their teacher. At the end of the day, the principal meets with Nube and asks him how his first day at school went. Nube tells the principal that on his first day here, he was able to notice tons of spirits and yokai, but the problem is that he can't just recklessly go around exorcising every single one he sees around school. He plans on deciding what to do next after he's gained the trust of the students, The principal knows that he's the expert when it comes to the paranormal activities, so he decides to leave it up to him. Later that night, Hoshiro goes to visit his father, who's currently being hospitalized. Quick backstory on what happened. One day while they were at home, Hoshiro randomly got into his rage mode and ended up hitting his dad on the head really hard with a vase. But his dad doesn't hold any grudges against him. He still loves him no matter what and plans on seeing this through with him to the very end. About half an hour later, Hiroshi leaves the hospital and is on his way back home, and out of coincidence, Miki and Kyoto happen to be passing that same district at the exact same time. Kyoto spots him and tries calling out to him, but Miki stops her because she heard that Hoshiro apparently had one of his temper tantrums again and hit a kid at soccer practice. Miki considers Hoshiro as nothing but bad news, so she doesn't want to get involved. Still, Kyoto doesn't really care about that, so she chases after Hoshiro on her own. As she crosses the street, her jaw drops in shock as she sees a demonic being hanging out of Hoshiro's ear for a second and then disappears. The next day at school, Kyoto walks into the class and tells Nuba how worried she is about Hoshiro. He's been acting really weird lately. One second, he would act like he's got no energy at all. Then the next, he would get really angry all of a sudden. Hearing this, Nuba agrees to have a talk with Hoshiro to find out what exactly the problem is. During break time, Hoshiro is seen in the bathroom affirming to himself that he's not going to get angry today, but just then Nuba comes out from nowhere and shows him a giant crystal ball, asking him to explain what's been up with the random bursts of anger these days. Just as you expected, Hoshiro gets pissed off yet again, saying he's sick and tired of paranormal things, after which he slaps the crystal ball out of his hand and hits his face, then he just runs away. During the next class, Hoshiro comes to realize that he's so dumb that he doesn't know how to use a tablet, so he instantly goes into his rage mode yet again. This time, Kyoto tries to calm him down, but before she can, Hoshiro smacks her right in the face. Kyoto lies there on the floor unconscious. Nuba and some of her classmates come to check on her. She appears to be bleeding. Hoshiro has now come to his senses and just stares at his palms. How could I have done that to Kyoto? That night, Nuba and Hoshiro spend several hours at the hospital reception waiting for Kyoto to be discharged from the doctor's custody. Then a few moments later, Kyoto walks up in front of them with a bright smirk on her face and tells them not to worry. The doctor says it really wasn't that serious and she's going to be just fine. Hiroshi bows to apologize for putting his hands on her, and after he does, Nuba tells Kyoto that he wants to have a private chat with him. Nuba takes Hiroshi to an empty park, and after strolling for a while, they come across a random lady and her baby that's been crying for no reason. Nuba walks up to the baby and places his finger on his palm and starts to recite an exorcism incantation. At first, Hiroshi shrugs, thinking it's another one of that exorcism bullshit, but as Nuba continues to recite it, he notices that the wind starts to get stronger and the clouds get darker. Nuba's eyes now glow a vibrant red color. He pulls out what looks like a magic demon worm out of the baby's palm. Turns out that Kyoto snuck out behind them. She hides in front of a tree and is watching the entire thing. After this worm has been removed, the baby's mood immediately changes to a happy one. Nuba wears a serious expression on his face while he explains to Hiroshi that this worm is a cosmic being known as the tantrum worm. It doesn't normally possess people intentionally, but if it does end up possessing you, you'll end up being cranky for absolutely no reason. It typically attaches itself to babies and doesn't do any harm. However, there are rare cases of it turning into a lethal monster known as the 99-legged bug. Nuba suspects that's the monster that's currently possessing him, causing all those temper tantrums. He says he'll have no choice but to exorcise it. At the mention of those words, Hoshiro immediately gets flashbacks of how he got possessed by the monster. The monster now has full control of his body. Purple veins pulse across his skin, and his scream alone is powerful enough to hurl Nuba into a tree. After that, Hiroshi runs through the park, trying to escape Nuba. Kyoto sees him running away and immediately chases after him. Hiroshi continues to get flashbacks of what happened with his dad. He presses his hands against the wall in frustration. The veins attach to the wall and several creepy-looking eyes grow out of them. It's honestly starting to look kinda disgusting. Kyoto runs over to Hiroshi to inquire about his condition. But unfortunately for her, Hiroshi has now been fully possessed, so he towers over Kyoto and tells her to get the hell out of there because he gets angry. He launches an attack at her, trapping her with his demon slime and even looks like he's about to consume her body. That's when Nube swoops in to save the day. He uses an enchantment seal to wrap Hiroshi. This is an attempt for his exorcism. While he's being wrapped, he first of all hugs Hiroshi with one arm and then uses his other demon fist to punch the yokai out of him. The 99-legged bug is now out of his body and creeped up against the wall. Nube walks up to the monster and is just about ready to deliver the final blow. Honestly, Nube never expected the bug to get this big, but still it's nothing he can't handle. The monster lunges forward and is about to eat Hoshiro, But right before it can, Nuba pushes him out of the way and ends up getting eaten by the yokai. Hoshiro and Kyoto just stare and wonder whether this means they lost, but in the next moment, Nuba bursts through the body of the yokai in a very dramatic manner. Blood spills all over the floor. The yokai has now successfully been exorcised. Nuba walks over to the students and asks how they're doing. Hoshiro immediately bows to apologize to Nuba for making him deal with all this. Nuba just pats him on the head and says that it's only natural for a teacher to help their student whether they're in trouble, and moreover, Hiroshi is one of his favorite students, so he couldn't just turn a blind eye. At this point, Kyoto and Hiroshi have just witnessed Nuba's exorcism powers firsthand, so they now feel kind of dumb for doubting him in the first place. Then, without any warning, the next things we see is a pretty good-looking blonde guy appears out of nowhere and squeezes Hiroshi by the neck and raises him off the ground. Kyoko watches this happen and isn't just going to stand idly by. She walks over to the blonde guy and tells him to unhand Hiroshi at once. The blonde guy clearly doesn't want any third parties in his business, so he sends Kyoko flying over to the same direction Nikke was thrown to. As she lays on Nuba's chest, she informs him that Hiroshi is in trouble. Nuba can clearly see that and can also easily tell that the blonde guy has an otherworldly aura and is obviously not human. By the time they both climb the stairs and get to the main district, neither Hiroshi nor the handsome blonde guy are anywhere to be seen. Just seeing this situation, Nuba is confused as hell, but then in the next moment he notices that his demon hand has started to burn up. Nuba explains to Kyoko that his demon hand just burnt up because there's likely another demon living inside his hand since he exorcised Hiroshi and sealed the demon in there. Nuba can tell that Kyoko is still confused by what he means, so he further explains that the demon hand is a really strong weapon that fights spirits without vessels and fiendish yokai. More importantly, he needs to go and save Hiroshi as soon as possible, so he first asks Kyoko to get back home. But Kyoko doesn't want to go home, she wants to stick around for Hiroshi and help rescue him. Still, Nubi tells her that he won't allow it. The blonde guy's aura is far too intense, and it would only put her life at risk if she comes. Meanwhile, the blonde guy is seen on top of a roof with Hiroshi in his arms. He randomly throws him off the building, but then right before he hits the ground, he jumps down and catches him just in time. The blonde guy used this as a test on Hiroshi, considering how he didn't get angry. It's safe for him to assume that he has been freed from the effects of the tantrum worm. He continues to walk around with Hiroshi in his arms while he screams for help. He notices that there are loads of people staring at him, so he wonders whether kidnapping is not a normal thing in this world. Just then, Nuba comes out from nowhere and launches a spirit bind at him, but the blonde-haired guy is easily able to block it. It's time for him to launch his own attack. His eyes glow an ominous golden color as he initiates his infamous illusion jutsu, which makes all the nearby civilians take the form of his body. Nuba stares at all the multiple blonde guys around him and starts to wonder whether he must be hallucinating. The OG blonde guy drops down from the bridge with Hiroshi in his arms, and by the time he looks over the ledge, it seems that Hiroshi just fell off it and plummeted to the ground. He looks in front and sees a giant tiger about to feast on Hiroshi. He jumps down and even sacrifices himself as cover. But then by the time the tiger gets closer, it fades away and transforms into a regular guy on his scooter. He looks down at Hiroshi and sees that it was actually a cat all along. He looks around himself and his two brain cells click. He realizes that the blonde guy used his magic to make every moving thing an illusion. That's his power, illusion jutsu. Meanwhile, the real blonde guy is still on the move with Hiroshi. He notices that Hiroshi is starting to get a little whiny, so he uses another one of his magic spells that prevents him from moving. Hiroshi is now still aware of his actions and conscious, but he just can't move. The blonde guy plans on executing his plan while it's still evening, so he doesn't have time for any obstacles. Nuba is still finding it really difficult to track them down. He even tries using his crystal ball to narrow them down, but it's all of no use. He's lost them. He thinks for a few seconds and is starting to get an idea of where they're heading, so he pulls out his phone and tries to navigate to maps, but he's already too much of an unk to do that. Our boy doesn't even know how to use his cell phone. Just then, Kyoko appears out of nowhere, snatches the phone from his hands and starts to navigate it. Nuba is about to get furious that Kyoko came out into this dangerous setting, but at the same time he can't deny the fact that she's definitely going to be useful if he takes her along. That aside, Kyoko asks Nuba whether he has any idea where Hiroshi is. Nuba isn't sure, but at least he has a hunch. It has something to do with the 7 northern stars. Kyoko is obviously confused by that, so he plans on explaining to her. Apparently in ancient China there used to be 7 northern stars. Nuba suspects that the man who took Hiroshi somehow managed to leave them behind, or rather he left the otherworldly aura in them. He plans on leaving them in the shape of the 7 northern stars throughout town. Nubi's assumption is that he's planning to do some sort of ritual based on each character with an otherworldly aura, which likely means that Hiroshi is going to be used as a sacrifice. Kyoko hears this and starts to get worried, telling Nube they need to get there as quick as possible. However, Nube tells her not to panic because he knows that there's a strict order to spiritual rituals. If he follows the character of the 7 northern stars in order, the Hagen star would correspond to the last location. Kyoko hears that name and recognizes it to be the name of a popular amusement park. However, it's still under construction. Nube didn't want to bring Kyoko on this mission, but since she's the only one that can help him get there, he has no choice but to bring her along. Meanwhile, the blonde guy is just about ready to put the finishing touches on his perfect master plan. He looks down to the side and sees that Nuba has somehow been able to track him down and is now running straight at him. He still has time. He'll take care of Nuba here once and for all. He spots Hiroshi lying on the hands of a clock and about to get sliced. He runs up trying to save him. The blonde guy just watches from a distance and smirks. Nuba is playing right into his trap. By the time Nuba tries to save Hiroshi, he widens his eyes in shock as Hiroshi's head gets severed by the clock hands and falls down to the ground. Nuba just stares down the head speechless. How could he have let this happen? But then in the next moment, the head fades away and it turns out that it was all another one of the blonde guy's illusion jutsu. At the same time he realizes this, the blonde guy throws a sharp spear into his back, causing Nube to fall from the height of at least 3 stories. He walks over to pull the spear out from his back, saying this was as easy as taking candy from a baby. He didn't even need to get his hands dirty. Nuba struggles and grabs his foot, telling him to let Hiroshi go. But the blonde guy just stomps on his head in response. He walks away and admires the night sky, saying it's a beautiful night to perform the humanification ritual. In this world, a fox that lives up to 300 years may become a yoko, which is a type of yokai that can master humanification. He needs Hiroshi's skull in order to turn into a human so he can live among their kind as the perfect yoko. As he takes Hiroshi to the ritual site, he mentions that he first of all saw him like 3 months ago and was so happy because that meant he would be able to start his ritual soon. In the initial stages, he thought it would be easy to find a human skull at the hospital, which is why he became a doctor. But unfortunately, he couldn't find the right skull so easily. But then one day he bumped into Hiroshi, and just by looking at him, he could tell that he had the perfect skull. It felt like a miracle for him. Ever since that day, he's watched Hiroshi very closely and was able to confirm that his would fit him. The process of humanification requires a human skull. However, if there's any anger left in that skull, it would act as noise and obstruct the ritual. That's why he placed his otherworldly aura in the tantrum bug. But in order to purify his skull, he would need to erase all his anger. He placed that in him and then observed its progression with great care. Everything up to this point went a lot better than he expected because he now has a new skull right in the palm of his hand. Nuba hears all this and now understands that all this was his fault. The blonde guy mentions that he spent years researching humans and he's noticed that they all drown in their own selfishness. However, he notes he's not any better than humans in the incomplete state he is. He needs the perfect skull to become the perfect yoko. He now has a very aggressive expression on his face. Then he unexpectedly uses his weapon to slash himself in the face. Hiroshi sees that and screams because the blonde guy has just transformed into a blonde fox. After that, he summons the 7 northern stars, and as they align in the sky, civilians spot it and honestly consider it to look somewhat beautiful. He lifts his spear, ready to split open Hiroshi's skull. But before he can, Nuba calls out to them and interrupts it. This provides Hiroshi with the opportunity to run away for the meantime. The fox sees this as a futile struggle, so he sends one of his magic bullets on course to hit Hiroshi. Hiroshi is able to run and get to Nuba just in time, but little does he know that Nuba has blocked the bullet from hitting him. Hiroshi tries explaining the entire thing, but Nube urges him to hush up. He's his student and he'll do no matter what it takes to protect him. He plans on using his cosmic powers to defeat the mystic fox once and for all, so he just tells Hiroshi to get behind him and watch. Nuba steps forward and activates his cosmic powers. The blonde fox watches in shock. Is that spiritual energy or demonic? The fox launches 3 illusions at Nuba and he's able to hold his ground at first, but he starts to struggle after the real blonde fox gets involved. He drives us forward with his spear. He doesn't understand Nuba at all. He's not even Hiroshi's father, so why bother going this length just to save him? Hiroshi watches from a distance and can tell that Nuba is going to get killed if things keep going this way. He needs to think of a plan quickly. Meanwhile, Nube is still in a gruesome battle with the blonde fox. The fox is still very curious as to why he's going such lengths just to save Hiroshi. Nuba simply replies, saying that Hiroshi is his student and there's no chance in hell that he's going to let his student hanging. During his time, Hiroshi just got an idea, so he's trying to break into the magnetic lever machine, but it looks like he's having a little trouble. That's when Kyoko comes out of nowhere and uses a giant steel pipe to break the door down. Nuba is still getting his ass kicked and is even about to get beheaded by the illusion in the air, but before they're able to hit him, Hiroshi uses the magnetic machine to pull them up and leaves the real fox open for an attack. Nuba now knows which one is real, so he wastes no time in delivering an attack that drives his demon fist all the way through its stomach. The fox has now been defeated. As his final words, it asks Nuba for his name, and then before he fades away, he says he hopes they meet in another life. Hiroshi and Kyoko have bright smiles on their faces, realizing that Nuba has won the battle. They run over to him to celebrate and praise him, but he humbly tells them that he never would have been able to win if not for their smart magnet idea. The Northern Stars return to their place of origin and everything goes back to normal. About half an hour later, Nube sits with the kids and informs them that the person they just defeated was a fox that had lived for centuries and ended up being turned into a yokai. Hiroshi hears this and mentions that he didn't think all this magic yokai stuff really existed. Nuba understands why he would think that. It's difficult to believe what you can't see after all. However, those cosmic beings have lived alongside humans for a really long time. He believes the most important thing when dealing with them is knowing how to form and handle a relationship with them. Hiroshi was really grateful to Nuba for saving his life, and ever since that day, his mood both inside and outside of school became more jovial. He was just a happier person overall, and it's all thanks to Nuba. One thing he knows for sure is that Nuba is the coolest homeroom teacher he's ever had. This was the end of episode 2. Subscribe to not miss the next part.